Coming up now is one of the top engine builders here in the Kansas City area and has been involved in racing for 54 years in all facets of the sport. And we're talking about Rick Darling. Rick, we appreciate you joining us this morning.
Yep, thanks to be with you.
Well, congratulations on the win. Did you ever see yourself as a Hall of Famer when you got started?
No, I was just doing it for the fun of it and the driving and stuff, and then later on just glad to be able to build engines to help people win with and have fun.
Now, you started out as a driver. You raced your own race cars for a while. How tough was it to get out of the driver's seat and just focus in on building engines?
Well, it turned out it was fairly easy because I didn't have the money and the car was old, and and I couldn't buy a ride. Back then, everybody was buying rides, no matter what your ability was. And I just went from there to crewing for, Bill Lutz was the first one, and because he'd given me half his shop to operate out of when I had my Sprinter. But just went from there, and then, got into the engines, and because I'd taken care of mine, and everybody, liked it. Mine stayed together and put out the horsepower, which wasn't really the truth. That horsepower I did have was going to the track. So that made it look good. But I started building engines for everybody after that.
Now, you grew up around racing. Your dad, a big influence, no doubt.
Yes, started out with watching them from the grandstands, and I really liked it. And I guess he liked it, but I guess he saw I liked it more maybe. But we went to the go-karts in the 50s, and then got out of that, and then Dad owned cars with Lyle, so just one thing led to another. And then Dad had a car, a mechanic at his garage had a car, of course the one Jay drove. And then when I graduated from high school, Dad gave me his car, and things started happening after that.
How'd you get interested in working on the engines as not exclusively on the race cars, but kind of the focus of what you were doing?
Well, it's about like a lot of them nowadays, money and trying to do as much as you can yourself. And then, just progress from there. Still learning, especially, porting heads and stuff. Every design's a little different, casting that you get. And it's just making things better and trying to do it cheap.
How much of what you do you consider an art form, and how much creativity goes into what you do and the talent level you have to do what you do and do it well?
Engines are fairly simple. They're not as simple as some people think they are. But the hardest thing is porting of heads, getting the air through them and keeping the speed just right and everything like that to make the horsepower.
What's been the biggest change over all these many years you've been working on motors?
Cylinder heads and the RPM of the engines.
And what's been the biggest change as far as let's talk about the cylinder heads, the biggest aspect that you've seen over the years that maybe 25 years ago you didn't expect to see that you're working on that's commonplace today in building engines?
Well, basically the 23-degree heads, and now they're down to 18, 17, 15, 16s. I got some in here now that I'm doing. Get on down to 11s. That's the biggest thing on the cylinder heads is the valve, degrees that it is from the piston. So.
And turning the RPMs, as you mentioned, that's been a big component. Are you amazed by how fast these engines are turning these days?
Yeah, to a certain extent, but you've got to have better parts, and a lot of my customers can't afford them, so we've got to try to build it, for their budget and their RPM range, to make it stay together all year. But lighter stuff helps it rev quicker, but it also, if they're going to turn 9,000 RPM, which I don't really see why they need to. They've got to have the lighter parts for it to rev that high.
Are there rules packages that could be put into place today that are not being used by series and tracks that would help reduce the cost of these engines?
Well, like a lot of them, B-mod stuff or whatever, they need to go by the rules. Of course, everybody's looking for the gray area.
Yeah.
And if it's supposed to have a stock crank, they need to check them. Because I know a lot of them, they put the real lightweight stuff in it, and that would help keep the cost down, is making them run a certain weight crank or something, which that would be even harder to police because you don't want to have to tear the motor down to check it out. But some of the stuff you've almost got to really police it good.
Is there
whatever it takes, you just got to keep the components, maybe the RPM limit on them or something like that. That way they can't really, they're still going to put it in there because some of them try to buy a win instead of working with the chassis and stuff to earn a win.
Let's talk about the drivers you worked with over the years. I know Bill Oots, he's going into the Hall of Fame. That's got to be pretty special. You going into the Hall of Fame with Bill. You worked with him for a lot of years, didn't you?
Yeah, I started out in '74 when I sold out. Well, he'd watched me put my Sprinter together on a dirt floor, one-car garage with one light bulb hanging above it, and no heat or anything. It was open, cracks, through the boards and stuff. Matter of fact, I put cardboard up to keep the wind from blowing through. But he used to come in and sit and visit with me when he was in town, and I guess friendship really started there. And then on to where, when I lived in Sedalia, he gave me half his shop to operate out of. And then when I sold out, he said, "You don't have anything to drive, so, you help me, and did all the traveling with him for IMCA for, 4 years, won IMCA championship, 3 of them. Then I couldn't travel because I'd gotten a job. Then I started helping Corbin, helped him for about 4 years, and I started driving again while I was helping Tom. But, Bill, we came back together, I guess, in the 90s, early 90s, and finished up, driving. I was with him until he quit driving again, so. But it's, we're like I guess any team or something, you even hear it in NASCAR where crew chiefs or mechanics or just members of the team go in different directions, but over time they get back together again.
Jay Lyle also going into the Hall of Fame tonight. Talk about working with Jay.
Yeah, he drove for Dad. He worked at Dad's garage for a little bit. They built cars there in the garage. There was nights that every race car in town was in Dad's garage. Everybody getting them ready for the weekend.
Yep.
Street stocks and modifieds and stuff. And then whenever I started driving, Jay helped me get the car going. And then when I tore down all the fence down at Thunderbolt, he helped rebuild the car so I could race again. So. And then he brings me heads all the time to do and check over and stuff. I used to do blocks for him, but now I basically just do cylinder heads for him. So.
You're still going strong, still as passionate as you ever were. You've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, I'm getting a little tired. 65 now, and I can't work. I used to work till 11, 12 at night.
Yep.
And I'm more out by 4:30 in the afternoon. When the shop was at the house, when I was doing all the head porting, Karen would stick her head out the door and ask me if I was going to bed, and I'd ask what time it was, and she'd say 12, 1 o'clock, whatever it was. Then about 8:30, 9 o'clock the next morning, I was back out there porting heads again. But it's been around a long time. And just, there have been changes, things that like we talked about earlier on engines and heads and stuff. But It's just a lot of years.
Well, Rick, congratulations again on being inducted into the C.A.R.B Hall of Fame. Look forward to seeing you at the banquet a little bit later on tonight. We appreciate you joining us, and have fun.
I'll try.
That is Rick Darling, and now we're going to turn to somebody that Rick knows very well, another member of the C.A.R.B Hall of Fame, be inducted tonight, Jay Lyle. Jay, congratulations. This has got to be a pretty special event in your whole racing career to be inducted into the C.A.R.B Hall of Fame. How do you feel?
Oh, yeah, I feel good that I'm being inducted in the Hall of Fame. It's a real honor that, that could happen to me.
Well, the Lyle family has been huge in racing around this area, and, of course, you go back a long way. Just how did you get involved in racing to begin with?
Well, Rick Darling's dad had a lot to do with that. His name was Chuck Darling, and I used to work for him years ago, back in the 1960s. And him and I, we went to a race down between Sedalia and Green Ridge to a racetrack down there. I think it was called Thunderbolt Raceway. And we liked the races real well. And so anyhow, we got to talking, and he said, "Hey, I'll buy a car if you drive it." I said, "Oh, okay, we'll do that then." So that's kind of how we started, just in kind of an old car, jalopy type car.
Well, you were pretty successful driving the race car. Did you always see yourself as a pretty competitive person?
Well, yeah, I like competition, and I always liked auto racing, but I just didn't get a chance to do anything until, at that time that Chuck gave me a start anyhow.
How good did you think you would be right out of the gate? Did you surprise yourself?
No, not really.
You're always confident.
I know the first or second time that I raced, I was running down at Thunderbolt down at Sedalia, between Sedalia and Green Ridge. Well, I was out there on the track. I thought, boy, I'm really going fast, And about that time, Roy Hibbard and Walter Sorrows and Kenny Tate buzzed by me like I was sitting still, And I thought, holy cow, I'm not going to be able to go that fast ever, So anyhow, I had some doubts, but I kept at it and finally got, fairly fast.
Talk about some of those early cars you drove.
Well, yeah, when I first started out, they called them jalopies, which was old cars that were full-body old cars from, say, about the 1930s, 1940s, something like that, that had take the fenders off of them and put them on the track and race them, And then as they graduated on up, they had about the same frame on those cars, but they called them super modifieds at that time, which was you could run 2 or 3 carburetors and a fuel injection on them. And so the super modifieds, then they kind of evolved into the sprint cars. And I know used to we run in a circuit down at the State Fair, the old IMCA circuit. It was run by Al Sweeney, and he had a rule there. You run the sprint cars at the night show, and you could run the super modifieds in the evening show. But all you had to do was just change the tail of them. You couldn't run a sprint car tail in with the super modifieds, and he wouldn't let you run a super modified tail in with the sprint cars.
There was one famous weekend, we see it in your biography here, that you went out and at, 2 or 3 different racetracks, you won just about every race. That was a pretty special weekend. Did you go undefeated that weekend?
Well, yeah, I did that weekend. I was driving 3 different cars. I was driving a late model car for a man named Darrell Witt, which is a local man here in Warrensburg. And then I was driving a sprint car for a man named Mick Lamb. He was also from Warrensburg here. And I had just what they kind of called a B car, which was kind of like the old super modifieds, but they just had a box on the back of them, and I think 1 carburetor is all you could run. And so we went. At that time, California, Missouri had just opened up a track. So we went down there, and I won, run all 3 cars, each night. And so went to California, and I won all 3 features, and I won all 3 heat races there. So then the next night, which was Saturday night, we run at Jefferson City, Missouri. And I repeated down there the same thing. And then Sunday night, we went over to Marshall, Missouri, and I repeated again. I'd done the same thing there, won all 3 features and the heat races and stuff. But anyhow, that's the only weekend that I'd done all that. I think the next weekend I blew up a motor, so I only won with 2 cars that night.
Your favorite racetrack of all the racetracks that you competed and won at?
I enjoyed Marshall Speedway a lot. Seemed like I got along pretty good with it. I won several features over there with it. And then probably second was Jefferson City. Liked that track there.
If I remember right, didn't you win the first modified race at the new L.A. Raceway?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I remember that night.
Yes,
And you got to be real proud of your boys. They're very successful racing. Chad and Clint, talk about their racing.
Yeah. Well, Chad, he's been a good racer from years back. I don't know. I started him out when he was about 14 years old, driving an old car, And of course, he was about like I was when I started. He was kind of slow, but he got faster, a lot quicker than I did. And so anyhow, he started out racing just the little old 4-cylinder cars. But then he graduated on up, and we started racing late model cars. And he's real successful in that. And then my younger son, Clint Lyle, he started him out in an old car, and it's about the same thing. Got him into the late model races. And he won a lot of races out here at the north of Warrensburg, and in his late model. And then he graduated to modifieds too. But Clint, the young son's got a job that keeps him from doing much racing anymore. So that's kind of the way that goes.
Now you're still out there driving, aren't you? A little bit.
Oh yeah. I run just when I feel like it. Like I told someone the other day. I said I run, when the weather is just right. I don't like it too hot or I don't like it too cold. So that's kind of the way I do things anymore. And I run about maybe once a week. If everything turns out okay.
Street stock, right?
Yes,
Yeah, same car you've had the last couple of years?
No, I just built a brand new one here this winter. So it's all ready to go. I think they had a picture of it in the Daily Star Journal down at the newspaper down at Warrensburg.
Yeah. Where you plan on running that? It's too bad we don't have Central Missouri Speedway anymore.
Well, yes. I'm going to miss that track. I'll probably just run down at L.A. Speedway maybe, and then I thought maybe I might run a few races down at Wheatland, Missouri.
Final thoughts about going into the C.A.R.B. Hall of Fame?
Well, it's a real honor to me to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, because it's kind of puts you into the drivers. Elite drivers that have run pretty special, and contributed to the racing community around here, and I enjoyed it because of the competition, and I'm glad that that the C.A.R.B. has come up with a special type honor for drivers and owners and mechanics that have really, contributed to the racing community.
Well, we appreciate you coming on. Congratulations on the high honor. And, Jay, we appreciate you coming on.
Okay. Thank you very much.
That is Jay Lyle, and one person we'll all be thinking about tonight is Betty Lyle, Jay's wife, who we lost here a few years ago, and she was so much a big part of the Lyle family racing success, and wouldn't she be so proud of Jay going into the Hall of Fame tonight?